Who wants to learn about storytelling today? You guys know I am so passionate about infusing stories in our marketing, in the work that we're doing, but I have no idea how to teach it. And I'm really excited for y'all to meet my friend, Nick Demas, who is a fellow James Wedmore student. We met in 2019 in James Wedmore's Next Level program. And I remember kind of noticing that we were both in this creative entrepreneur space. And I just love Nick's energy. And we connected once then, but we never collaborated or anything. I feel like I remember it a little more than he does. But we reconnected recently at the Business by Design event, and Nick and I were brainstorming about would it be possible to bring him over to the East Coast for the Elevate Inspire event, and that didn't work out, but it led to this beautiful collaboration and podcast swap that we have now done. So I'll be on his podcast eventually, and he's here on the Messy Success podcast. And Nick Demas is a Tony Award-winning Broadway producer. He brings this incredible energy everywhere that he goes. He's a documentary filmmaker, speaker, and business coach. He has 20 years of teaching pranayama breath work and yoga, which you guys know I love yoga, and creativity, as well as 30 years in the entertainment industry. He's traveled from the Tony Awards to ashrams and run a multi-million-dollar business in between. Nick works with entrepreneurs, experts, and thought leaders to authentically use storytelling on stages to make income and impact. And you guys are going to love getting to know Nick and a little bit of his story. He's so open. One of the main things I shared with him about this podcast was that we are not perfect. We are messy and vulnerable, and we share behind the scenes. And he definitely brought that. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm so excited to welcome Nick. Welcome back to the Messy Success Podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Henson. This podcast is your space, your corner of the world to be messy, creative, and ambitious as you want to be. I'm incredibly passionate about helping people do what they love and make a living doing it. We all know that is a messy process, but the messy imperfection, the messy success is what makes it all so beautiful. I'm here to help you build community around your brand so that marketing is easy. There's no such thing as a self-made millionaire, in my opinion. We're all in this together. We shine the light on others, focus on leadership. And our theme here for 2024 is the 1% adventure, where we're getting 1% better every single day. So what do you say we get started? All right. Welcome, Nick. I am so excited to have you here today. Your energy is so contagious. And when I saw you at BBD Live on stage, I was like, I have got to get Nick in with my people. So tell us who you are and what you do in your casual version.
Okay, so first, I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I know what it means to bring somebody to your folks, to your people, to your community. And so I'm really honored that you were like, come chat with my people. So I'm Nick Demas, and I work with entrepreneurs, creatives, to use storytelling to draw in audiences, convert to sales, and to make impact in the world, ultimately.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, and I love that that's your specialty, because I feel like storytelling is something that I'm constantly trying to encourage my students to do. It's something that I'm always working on doing, but I don't really know how to teach it or how to explain it. So I would love for you to take a minute and just show off your skills and tell us, how do we storytell? How do we do more of that in our business?
Yeah, okay. So there's many different forms of storytelling, which might be why it's kind of it feels like this nebulous topic. It's like, oh, well, I know I'm supposed to use storytelling, but what does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it is such a huge topic. Storytelling is something that is very visceral. It's something that we have been doing since the beginning of time. We sat around campfires and in the caves outside, in the outside, sat around these fires, and we communicated with one another. And so it's something that is so innate within us that we
Mhm.
learn best through storytelling. When and the originally they believed that the stories were about how the leaders of the community would go out into the wild
Mm.
and get the prey, the dinner, and bring it back. And that was the story that they would create about the dinner. Now, whether they got it and what you were eating or why they didn't get it. And the term exaggeration came into play because they would make up sometimes these stories about what happened, or they would
Mm.
make them more, they were or the original marketers of of what was happening with the food. So, because of that, it is completely innate within us. And so, when
Mm.
you share a story, there's this automatic connection that happens. In fact, our brains are wired for it. When we tell a story, there's a part of our brain called insula that activates. And this is really cool. When you tell a story, the person that you are speaking the story to and the person that are listening, our brains actually sync.
Oh, wow.
They synchronize. And so consequently, when you share a story, it draws somebody closer to you. Now, I began storytelling when I was a wee tot, a wee lad. My mother would say I used to jump up onto the table and recite all the nursery rhymes. So there was something within me that it
Mm.
was just innate. It was just part of who I was. And by 16 years old, I was a professional dancer. I moved to New York when I was 19. So it was really a part of me. So oftentimes when somebody will say, "Well, break down how to storytell," I have to really think. You
Yeah,
know how
because it
when
came
you're
so
the
naturally
expert
to you.
when you're the expert in something,
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, wait a minute. How do I do this?" When I came to the online
Yeah.
space, I had to really break it down. Now, for your business, there are really 4 places that I really see storytelling as being important. Social media, first and foremost,
Mm.
because why you're gonna
Mhm.
draw people in,
Mhm.
right? That's how you draw people in, is with storytelling. And because facts, they say tell, stories sell. But I actually think
Mm.
facts with stories sell because you need
Yeah.
that factual to back it up. But the story is what's going to draw somebody in. And on social media, you see people who maybe can say all the right things, but they're kind of boring.
They're not connecting.
They're not
Yeah.
connecting, but yet they're
Yeah.
saying everything that that you want them to say, but there's somehow a lack of connection there, and that
Mm.
also comes from story. So story on social is one of the places. Using story in your emails, in your sales
Mhm.
emails, that is really vital because what that actually is the specificity of your messaging.
Mhm.
Because let me give an example here. You say, oh, let's say you sell a meditation course. We all know we've all meditated now. We all know what meditation is. So this is a very an easy one, right?
Yeah.
And you say, well, why would somebody meditate? Because find their problem. What's the problem that they have? Well, they're anxious. So if you say, okay, they have anxiety. Well, we all have anxiety. That's not gonna that doesn't grab me.
Right, right, right.
But if you say, I'm sitting there and I'm at my desk and I'm typing in the middle of the day, and all of a sudden, I feel my shoulders come up towards my ears, and there's a tightness in my chest, and I can't breathe. And then you say, but meditation would shift that for you.
Mm.
That's very different than, oh, you have anxiety. So you see, the
Yeah.
story there is the helpful in the specificity of the problem. So that's the second place I see it.
Yeah, and there was a magical way that you delivered that too, and I know this is, like, a little bit of a nuance, but you delivered it in a way that, yes, you were talking about yourself, but as I'm listening, like, I'm putting myself in that position, and there's that nuance of the people that I'm just gonna to talk about myself versus having that ability to tell a story and the person is hanging on to every word because they're picturing themselves. And
Yeah,
I don't know if we can break that down specifically, but I heard that difference.
we can. And here's what it is that what you're actually referring to is the hero's journey story. The
Mm,
Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell, if you don't know what that is, go look it up because it's gold. It's
yeah.
truly every movie, every classic movie is based on the hero's journey, and once you know it, you can begin to watch a film and you'll say, "Oh gosh, okay, here's what's coming next. I get it." My husband, he's so irritated by me because I used to when we first started dating, I would like hit him and be like, "Okay, here's watch this, watch this." And now he does that to me. He like the other night he was like, "Damn, why did you do that to me? Now I know what's
Like,
coming next."
and you shattered the glass, right?
I shattered it, like, too much knowledge
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
films, right? But it is this classic storytelling structure. But the hero of all of your marketing stories is not you.
Mhm.
Your customer is the hero of the story. You are their guide. And
Yes.
when you get that piece, when you get that understanding of making it you language, you forward, and yes, even when you're sharing a story about yourself, it's about how it affects them, not
Mhm.
putting yourself on some strange pedestal or making yourself look amazing. That's all great. That's influencer marketing. That's a completely different type of marketing. For those of us
Yes.
that want to make sales, it's not about standing in front of a wall and looking pretty or the latest and greatest, whatever reel. It
Or
really
like, "Go
is.
buy this sweater."
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really that's not what it is. It really is for us about making the customer the hero of the journey and you
Mm.
standing there as their go-to guide, their expert, their leader, which is what I really did. And that's that subtlety that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the second place. The third place is in all your virtual presentations. So
Mhm.
if you're going to go into somebody else's group or on a podcast like this, really being able to share parts of your story and who you are is really important for people to connect with you. And then we often
Yeah.
call that your origin story. Sometimes it's the origin of your business, but really it's about how people can connect with you,
Mhm.
how people connect with you.
Yeah, I struggled with that for a long time because I was always like, I don't have a rags to riches story. Like, I don't have this dramatic thing that happened to me. And, an amazing friend that I worked with, she was like, well, think about like Ariel in The Little Mermaid, right? Like, she was the protagonist. Like, she showed people what was possible. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I just want to show people what's possible, that the world can be better, that they can do better. And it gave me that permission of like, I don't have to have this like terrible thing that happened to me that I overcame to have a good story, right?
Yeah, that is a fallacy ultimately.
Yeah.
That you have to be homeless, been a drug
Yeah.
addict, been abused to have a good and compelling story. The truth of the matter is sometimes those stories can be repelling rather than
Mm.
drawing people in. Because if you don't have
Mhm.
that, you're like, whoa, that's a lot. I'm not sure that's for me. Versus
Yeah.
somebody who has a relatable story. So when
Yeah.
I was in my 20s, I was a dancer at the Radio City Music Hall Christmas Spectacular with the Rockettes.
Oh my god, I
And
love it. Wait, oh my god, I just wanna see that video. I'm sure you have it on video.
there's no
Oh
video
my
because
god.
it was a little while ago. I'm kind of old for
True,
the
true.
video. It was pre-cell phone. It was the 90s, okay?
Oh,
Uh,
oh my god. I love the '90s. Bring me back, bring me
bring
back.
me back to the 90s. Well, I was
Yeah.
dancing with the Rockettes at the Radio City Christmas Spectacular. And in the show, the director had us jump from a trampoline onto the stage. And by the way, this was in the Nutcracker Ballet.
Oh my
The
gosh.
Nutcracker Ballet at Radio City is done in bear costumes. So I am in a bear head, jumping from a trampoline, doing a split leap jump, which is like a toe touch, and landing on the stage. Now, at Radio City, there are big numbers all across the floor. And because it's really gridded, like it's dangerous. There's a lot of moving huge pieces and you have to stay on your number, right? So I'm jumping off the trampoline, I land on the stage and I'm looking at the floor and I'm trying to find my number and I can't find my number and I'm sauteing and which is a big leap across the stage and I'm sauteing and I'm sauteing. I'm trying to find my number and my bare head has fallen over my eyes and tears begin streaming down my face. And it's Christmas Day. And this is my fourth show of the day. And I'm crying. And I go to the dressing room right after, and I take my bare head off and I sit it down on the counter. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and saying, "This is not your life.
Mm,
This isn't the storytelling you signed up for."
yeah.
And I made a decision that day that I was going to change my life, that I was going to become the storyteller that I wanted to be, not some cog in the wheel at Radio City Music Hall, not dancing somebody else's dance.
Mm.
And I got on the phone, old school phone, called every person I'd
A
ever
real
worked,
phone.
real phone, called every person I'd ever worked for in the industry, in the entertainment business, and said, "I'm directing and choreographing now." And one of the people that I called said, "Oh my gosh, Nick, we just lost our choreographer. Will you come choreograph a production of Godspell?" And I was like, "Oh, hell yes."
Yes, I
And
will.
I will. And immediately I switched. And that was really the beginning for me
Mm.
of being a true storyteller from my voice rather than somebody else's voice.
Yeah, and trusting your power, like stepping into your power of knowing like this is what's next and this is what I'm going to do. Like there was zero hesitation in that decision, at least in the way that you're telling it.
There was zero hesitation, honestly.
Yeah,
I knew that I had a calling that was deep within to share stories, real stories,
your way.
my way, not
Yeah,
the way I was being told. Because as a dancer, you're told what to do, how to do it, what to not say because you don't speak. And I knew that I had a voice that had to be heard.
yeah.
Okay, so what did I just do there?
Yeah, like you definitely told us a story. We all have had those moments of the bear head, Nick. We've all had
Yes.
those moments. That's what you did. We all had those moments where we had that breaking point of this is not for me.
And it might not be that everyone's danced at Radio City Music Hall. Very few people have danced at Radio City Music Hall. But that moment of, oh my gosh, I have to change my life. This isn't for me. We all
Yes.
have had.
Yes.
And
And
so
that's not a homeless story. That's a real
that's a real
everyday
story,
story.
everyday story, maybe extraordinary circumstances, but it's an
Yeah.
everyday, ordinary story.
It's a
And the way,
moment.
and it relates to my business currently.
Yeah. Yeah. And how you got here and why you do what you do.
Correct. So
So
that you'd be
beautiful.
drawn in or repelled. Either way.
Uh-huh.
Either you're gonna
Uh-huh.
be drawn in and say, "This guy knows what he's talking about. I wanna come work with him," or, "Well, I'm not interested in who he is as a human or what he has to
Mhm.
say." And either way,
Mhm.
that's gold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Repelling is just as good as attracting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh my gosh, so good. And did you just do that on a whim or have you had that little story in your back pocket?
That's a story I've told quite a bit
Yeah.
because, one of the great practices is repetition.
Mhm.
Repetition, I begin to know, oh, well, what lands, what doesn't land. And I tell it differently every time. It's not memorized, by the way. That is a mistake that many people make is to
Yeah.
memorize it. And then when you say it, it sounds rote, right? That's actually a mistake. I have talking points. And so every time I
Mhm.
tell the story, it's slightly different, but the points are the same. And then there's moments and little things that I'll say that I know hit and I know land. Because, for instance, Elizabeth, you would go, hmm.
Yeah.
That's a touch point, and you go, okay, that lands.
Yeah.
People lean in. You can tell, particularly when you're going live, and that's really the fourth place is live storytelling. When you stand
Mhm.
on stages, when you step on stages as a speaker, you really have that immediate feedback. And of course, for me, being a theater person, that's where I live. So it's not, and look, you came to me because you saw me live.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? There's some sort of attraction there of hearing me speak and talk. So that's really the fourth place in your business. And all of these, all four, whether it's social, whether it's virtual, whether it's podcasts, whether it's live, they all need to lead to whatever it is that you offer.
Yeah.
Converting offer stories.
Yeah. I'm sitting here like, do my stories go to the right place?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's where my mind's going,
I
right?
would say start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
What is it that you are, and each of your offers needs its own story
Mm,
beyond this story that I just told, right? Of my origin story. That's the origin of my business, but each offer itself needs a story.
yeah. So the reason and the story behind why you help people on stage is going to be very different than the reason and the story behind when you're helping your clients with content.
Correct. Because, for instance, I do have a course that helps people step on stage and share their stories, right?
Yeah.
That story, I have a different story that I tell that goes with that particular course because the reason why I created it is very different than the reason why I created my business as a whole. And
Yeah.
the reason
Okay.
that
Now,
they might want to take it is slightly different.
has this always come supernatural to you? Like you mentioned, like as a kid on the table, like, but the ability to connect stories to business, has that always come naturally to you too? Or do you feel like you had to
Hail
learn?
no. Hail no. Have you seen The Color Purple? Which she sings, Hail no.
Because I'm like totally assessing myself, right? I'm like, oh, there's so much room for improvement here. Like I know I can tell stories and I know that I'm good at business, but I'm like, but have I connected the
Yeah,
dots?
it's about connecting those dots. I was not great. I was not a great marketer when I first came into
Mm,
to the online space.
right,
Because the
right.
way in which we market in theater, my background, obviously I've run a non-for-profit, which was a multi-million dollar business. I produced a Broadway show, and a couple Broadway shows, but a Broadway show, and that is a, $20 million business. So I know how to run business, but the way in which we market in the theater is very different than the way in
Mm,
which you market in the online space. There are similarities, and there are these connection points. In the theater, we talk everything's an experience. What
mm,
experience are you going to have? Because people don't really necessarily have a problem, and they're not looking for a solution to their problem. I mean, you could say the problem is they need to be entertained,
yeah.
but that's not really a problem per se
Right.
in the
Like
same.
that's not why people dance. That's not why people sing. Yeah, I get that.
Do you
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? So it's like,
Yeah.
yes, are in the problem solving business of we provide you entertainment, but so do the other
Mm,
25 Broadway shows that are running currently. So how are you
mhm.
different from that? So what experience are you creating and offering for people? So there is a bit of that in that positioning thing, right? How do you position yourself in the market? That's
Yeah.
similar. But ultimately, when I came into the online space, I didn't quite yet understand, oh, I'm helping people with a specific problem.
Yeah.
And I provide the solution to that problem. And the story is the connection point between that. And once
Yeah.
I got that, that's when everything shifted. And then I was able to like take all the years of storytelling experience, that expertise, and connect it to the online space. But it was tough for me at first. I'm not gonna lie. It was like it was a different language. I remember coming into this space and thinking, what language are you speaking? I didn't even. I mean, what was a funnel? What was a like? We didn't talk like this. What was
Yeah.
there was just these terms that were being thrown out, and I was so confused because I had a different background.
A landing page and a
I,
webinar
y-
and yes.
yeah, I mean, I really was like, wait, what? You're what's the click through rate? What's the it was
Oh
just
my
it was
god.
a different world than what I was used to. Um, so it was tough. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie.
Yeah. And what would you say has been like the biggest like transformation in you in figuring it all out, right? Like just taking so one of the stories that I tell, one of the things that I talk about a lot is we all have like the reason we're on the planet, right?
Yeah.
And then we have our superpowers, which is what we're really good at. And then we have our offers, which is what makes us money. And sometimes when you have a job like a teacher, and they're a really great teacher. I'm talking like the one in a million teacher that's a really great teacher that is meant to be a teacher. That's the reason she's on this planet. She's really good at it, and that's what she does to make money. But with what you and I do, it's very different. It's like, I know I'm here on the planet because I love helping people do whatever it is they love and make money doing it. But like nobody rolls out of bed looking for that as the solution to their problem.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to figure out, what am I really good at? And then how do I turn that into an offer? And I'm like, it feels like it's been a freaking 10-year journey, right?
It
Of like, I'm here. This is what I'm good at. And this is how I make money that still allows me to be in my purpose.
So I thought I was going to be a theater person forever and always.
Yeah.
And I'm at the Tony Awards and I'm nominee and I'm sitting in the audience and for best musical, and Bernadette Peters walks across the stage to announce. She says, "And the winner is," and she opens up the envelope and she takes a big pause. And I'm like, "Okay, girl, get with it. Get it. Go, go, go. Say it. Say it." And
Were
she
you
said,
like already getting up out of your
I
seat?
was like, "Ah." And she says, "Memphis," which is the name of the musical that I produced. And everyone around me rose and would like, there was like, you know, screaming and hugs. And I remember very quickly in my mind, a couple things happened. The first thing was, oh, thank God, my investors are going to get paid back. They're going to get their money back.
Mm,
We're
mm,
actually going to be a hit because a Tony's a hit
yeah.
maker. That was the first thing that went through my head. The second thing was, this is it. This is it. This is how this is supposed to feel. See, in that moment, I felt absolutely nothing. I wasn't joy.
Almost like relief versus joy.
I wasn't elated. And
Yeah.
they say it's like an out of body experience, right? So it felt very out of body. I'm like walking up to the stage and I'm looking to my left, like it was slow mo, looking to my right. And I was like, this isn't how this is supposed to feel. And I get up onto the stage and accepting the award with the producing team. And I'm standing there and I'm literally looking at everyone and thinking, wow, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Because my entire life had been for that moment. And I'd been in this pattern of best little boy in the world. I had to succeed. And that was, I thought my calling was to be the great Broadway person. And in that moment, I had this realization that I felt empty. And that's not how I
Mm,
wanted to feel. And I felt a deeper sense of calling to help people more than tell a story. It was what is underneath that story. And
yeah.
so I went and spent time with a teacher, with a spiritual teacher, and I sat with them and I lived with them and I like really like dove in to do some healing work on myself so that I could really truly serve other people. And then being the creative that I am and that we are, that your audience is, all these creatives, I went in 5,000 different directions.
Like, there it is. There it is. Oh, yes.
I was like, I don't know. Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's try this. Let's try that. There's this spiritual practice called neti neti. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but basically it negates everything. It says, I am
Mm.
not this. I am not that. I am not this. I am not that. To
But
figure
I
out,
was gonna say, what a better way to learn than to just try everything.
and I did. And so,
Yeah.
yes, it has been a 10-year journey of getting me back, ironically, back to where I started from, which is
Yeah.
storytelling. But I've gone
Yeah.
on many. I've pivoted five. Hello, I'm like Mr. Pivot. I say I pivot, kickball, change, and do some jazz hands while I'm doing it because I have pivoted so many times in the space. And guess what? My audiences come with me for the most
Yeah.
part. Yes, I some people leave, some people come in, but people are more forgiving than we think they are. But
Yes.
I had to explore. I realized that I needed that exploration because since 12 years old, I did one thing and one thing only, and that was Broadway.
Mm.
I didn't go to college. I didn't have a normal childhood. I was so single focused that I needed that time to go explore. So I did. So the hardest thing for me has been in this industry has been about coming and bringing it all together into one single pointed focus.
Yeah. Which is kind of like what I just shared, because I feel like I've had a very similar journey. I even stopped using the word pivot because I could feel a little bit of like shame, right? So
Yes.
I'm like, I'm elevating. Like, it may look like a pivot, it may feel like a pivot, but it's an elevation because it's helping me get closer to that destination.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Because I
that. That's a great reframe. That's a really
yeah,
brilliant reframe because I have felt that same way. I'm like, well, but it's just a part of me. It's just
right.
another. Oh, it's just another level of who I am. But I love that.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, I was using that creative energy as almost a way to, like, hide or make an excuse for, like, "Oh, I just need to build a business that allows me to do whatever the heck I want," which is true, but there's also an end game here where I said, like, I'm living in that purpose,
but don't you
right?
think
And I'm
too
just trying to
because you're
figure it out.
multi-talented? You're
Yeah,
multi-talented human, you're multidimensional. So of course
yeah,
it's difficult, especially
yeah,
for us creatives. It's like really difficult for us to be pinned down to one thing. I
yeah.
often say to people, you don't need to niche yourself, you need to niche your offer because it gets
Mhm.
people really like that niche word gets people just so riled up, you know? But
Yeah,
really it's like your purpose. Like what is it that you're here for? And trying to find that sometimes takes some time. And it's
yeah.
okay. And it also shifts
Mhm.
if my purpose was only to have been to produce Broadway, what was I supposed to do after 36 years old when I got the Tony Award?
Yeah.
Then what?
Yeah. And I always question, like, what do I want to be known for? Like, if I'm trying to really figure out if I'm in alignment or if I'm getting closer to where I want to go, it's like, well, if I was to land on freaking, Oprah or Ellen's couch or the Today Show, is this what I want to talk about?
Yeah,
And that's how I can really identify when I'm kind of chasing something that might be because, oh, that I can see how this would be easy money, or I can see how this would land as an offer. But like, is it my purpose? Is that what I want associated with my name?
I love that.
Right?
I do. I
Yeah.
love that. I talk about that a lot with the signature talk, which is, like a keynote. You go in
Yes.
front of a live audience and speak. And I will say to somebody, you get 45 minutes and all the world leaders are in the audience. What are you going to talk about?
Yes. Right. And I'm like, it wouldn't be Facebook groups. And Facebook groups are like my dessert. So I don't know if you remember at Business by Design Live, Holly talked about the desserts. I thought that was like the coolest example of
Yeah.
like, cool, Facebook groups are how a lot of people find me, but the right ones are going to continue learning and be like, ooh, I want the everything package, right?
I like that
But it's a
dessert.
dessert.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
It's
puts
interesting
me on
because
the
I
map.
actually do it the reverse. I think of it as the amuse-bouche, like that little tasting that you get
Yeah.
given at a restaurant, like, but I like the idea of dessert too. It's similar. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Because we have to find, like, how are people gonna find us? What are they rolling out of bed in the morning, right? And I was finding, like, okay, great, I'm really great at community building, but people don't roll out of bed saying they need that,
Yeah.
but they do roll out of bed saying, "My group sucks, my group's not engaged, or Facebook group's still a thing." And I can definitely teach on that because all of my methodologies around leadership and community building are applicable to Facebook groups. But I had to be very careful because I don't wanna be known as the Facebook group girl.
I so relate to this
Yeah.
because the way in which people find me is through social media. So I have like a
Mhm.
social media content calendar that you can download for free. That's my lead magnet, right? But
Yes.
but ultimately, I teach people how to speak and share their stories on stages. Now,
Yes.
social is a stage. Like I said, it's one of the four main stages for your business, but it's like an entry point. And
Right.
I have to be careful too, because I am not the social media guy. I'm not
Yeah.
going to give you all the tools and techniques to beat the algorithm and chase the whatever it is, the latest and greatest. That's not my thing. I mean, I can do it, but that's not my thing, right?
Right.
But it is the entry point I have found for a lot of people to find me is through social and
Yeah.
through the fact that I have like a system for social. In fact, that's what I spoke about on when at BBD Live
Yeah. Yeah.
when you saw me with social media. But
Yeah.
thankfully, you weren't like, "Oh, he's a social media guy." But a lot of people do.
I'm sure they do. I looked at it like, "Oh, I love his energy." And I know when you've had a little bit of experience, like a little bit of training in the speaking world, like I've worked with Tracy Goodwin, you start to become like a little bit of snooty, right? When you're watching other speakers, like my friends and I always say, we're like, I can't even focus on what they're saying because I'm so distracted by are they a good speaker or not. So like the second you got on stage, I was like, oh yeah, oh he's got it, he's got the thing.
And that's practice too.
Yeah,
It's a bit of both. I mean, obviously I was a professional actor,
Right.
professional dancer, like I said, since 12 years old. So of course there's a bit of that in there, but it's also a repetition. The thing
Yeah.
you can be a better speaker with repetition with the tools that Tracy or me or whoever offers you, right?
Yeah.
You can get better. So for somebody who's like, "Oh, I'm just not a good speaker. Oh, I can't." Yeah, you can. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can. Yeah,
And
you can.
it's like that way of being word or phrase that I like to always say. It's like a way of being on the stage, right? It's being present and being able to really connect versus like you can instantly see when somebody's kind of in their head. I mean, oh my God, I used to get so nervous and shaky and like sweating profusely. Like if James even made eye contact with me, I was like, I'm so nervous, I can't focus.
Well, the interesting thing is I still get shaky, I still get nervous.
Yes, yes.
And breath work is your best friend. Takes
Hmm.
you out of the sympathetic into the parasympathetic nervous system. It really calms you out of that fight or flight into the rest and digest. And so that's the very first thing I do before stepping on any stage is I do some breath, some
Yeah.
breathing so that I can really ground myself. In fact, if I go out and I'm really not in my breath, I turn to the audience and say, I need a breath. Let's all take a big deep breath together. And I go,
Nice.
and I lead it and they do it. And
Yeah.
then you've got them because they're
Yeah.
like, oh, he's being honest that he's nervous. A, B, I just took the entire audience from the sympathetic into the parasympathetic nervous system. So they're more relaxed to listen to me.
Oh my God, I love that. And I didn't have the science to back that up. But what I started doing is like, I'm just going to take a minute to soak this in, right? Like, just take a
Yeah.
minute to be up here and like connect with them before I just come out of the gate. And I love that you put a little bit of science behind that. Is breath work something that you also do like for money, or is this just something that your students get an added benefit?
Yes. Well, so when I went on my Eat, Pray, Love journey, as one would say, when I went and sat with a teacher, one of the things that I did was I became a yoga teacher during that time. And um, my specialty was in hatha yoga and in pranayama, which is ancient breath work.
Mm-hmm.
And I have over 2,000 hours of study in pranayama and the ancient techniques and tools. And so consequently, I did at one point have a course about breath work. In fact, when I
But
went on
we didn't pivot, we elevated.
and yeah, we elevated. In fact, I went on, speaking of James Wedmore, I was a guest on his podcast, not talking about storytelling, but talking about pranayama breath work. So there
Mm,
you go. But
yeah.
now it's part of my course on speaking on stage because of all the reasons that I just told you.
Yeah.
It has a major benefits in your life, period. It's a practice that I strongly recommend, a sadhana, which is a daily practice. I strongly recommend because it really takes you out of that fight or flight, like we were talking about, and out of the thought. It puts a pause between your thoughts. Um,
Mm,
and so I strongly recommend it regardless, but now it's part of everything that I teach,
part of the whole package. Yeah. I
part of the
love
package rather than teaching it individually.
Yes, yes, yes. I love hot yoga so much, and there's been so many times where I'm like, "Oh, do I want to take a teacher training?" Right? But I'm like, "No, like I want it to still be something that I just do because I love it." Right? I have that fear of like, "Oh, if I become a teacher," right? And then it's like, again, no, I don't need to go there, Liz. You've got this thing over
I
here.
mean, yeah, there is a shift. There's a shift when you do something for money.
Yes.
It changes the energy behind it, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I went and did it. I taught for many years, 10 years, and now I don't teach anymore. And I can still go back to yoga with love, although I'm highly critical of classes I go to, I'm not gonna lie. So if I ever come to your yoga class, you're gonna be like, oh, he's judging me.
He's judging me.
The teacher's judging everything you're not supposed to do as a yogi.
Right.
Um, but really it's me sort of evaluating rather than judging. And I liken this a lot with particularly with my clients and students when they go up to speak on stage that are maybe coaches, or I always say you're only going to teach or speak to the level at which you're ready, which you're at.
Mm. Mhm.
And the audience members who are out there for you will be there for you, particularly as like a teacher or a coach. They're going to come, and if they don't like what you have to say, they're just not going to come back again. They're just not going to be your client. And what you need as a beginning teacher, speaker, or coach at one point in your career is very different than later. As a student, what you need. And so consequently, you're going to need a different teacher, speaker, or coach depending on where you're at in that journey.
Oh my God, that's so true. Because in 2019, when I first was at BBD Live and I was on one of the panels about team building, and I go back and I have those like recordings on my phone because my friend took them for me, right? It is like cringeworthy, Nick. And I'm like, I cannot believe people actually approached me after this and said, I love what you had to say, because I just look at it as 2024 version of myself. This is 5 years ago. And I'm like, that is so cringy. But you're right. There was someone in that audience that needed what I have to say no differently than if I were to go up there today. There would be someone that needs what I have to say and someone that doesn't, right?
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
crazy to think about.
Absolutely. That's really the truth. And
Yeah.
so you don't have to be I just in my group had this conversation yesterday about leading expert. Everyone loves to talk about the leading authority,
Mm,
the leading expert. And I'm the world's leading authority in statements, right? And you don't have to be the world's leading anything. You have to feel in your body and believe that you can help somebody. That's
yes.
what you need.
Yes. That's one of my favorite coaching questions when somebody's like self doubt. They're suffering with like, oh, is this offer right? Is this right? Is this right? Is this right? And I'm like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you could go out and help somebody with this
Mhm.
problem? And they're like, a 10. And I'm like, that's all you need. Like the
Yeah,
rest is just trial and error, figuring it out, throwing a little spaghetti at the wall. But as long as you feel that, that's all you need. Yes.
absolutely.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I know we went on a couple tangents. Will you recap? I love to do a recap as I get towards the end of the episode. Will you recap you said the four speaking stages, right?
Yeah, there's 4 stages that you can speak on and share your stories
In
artfully
different ways.
in different ways
Yeah.
so you can draw clients, customers, and audiences, and that's on social, and that is on in virtual, in people's rooms, on podcasts like this, and live on stage. Those are
Yeah.
really the 4 primary places to share your stories with everyone, and, uh, when in doubt, be vulnerable, be real.
Hmm.
If there's anything else, anything I wanna leave people with is that realness, vulnerability is your attractor. And standing
Yeah.
up and looking like the expert, like we've been talking about in a "Look at me, I know everything" kind of way actually is not going to really draw people to you.
Yeah.
And
And
when
let's
you
talk about that for
understand
a second.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, because the advice I always get, not so much anymore because I've put myself in different rooms, but it's like the advice I used to always get if I would say, "Oh, social media, like I'm struggling or it's not getting what I want." It's like, "Well, be more vulnerable. Talk about the problems you're having in your marriage. Talk about your miscarriage. Talk about your health issues." And I've just never, it's not that I'm a private person. I'm actually a very open, vulnerable person. But I think about the people that I admire most, right? Like James isn't emoting all over the place. You can be vulnerable and still speak to the thing you want to be known for. So, can you help me like debunk that a little bit? We don't have to bring
Yes.
our vulnerable isn't bringing our dirty laundry all over the place.
Vulnerable is not bringing the dirty laundry.
Yeah.
Vulnerable is sharing an experience when you're on the other side.
Mm,
That's the difference. When you're able to be the guide, that's
yeah.
when you share with vulnerability. Not when you're in the middle of it. When you're in the middle of it, it's therapy. Nobody wants your
Mhm.
therapy. Nobody wants to hear you bitch, moan, complain, whine. That's not going to draw any customer or client to you. In fact, that is an ultimate repellent.
Yeah, and I've heard that can kind of bring in the same thing. So if you're
Correct.
troubled, you're gonna attract more
You're going to
trouble.
draw in troubled folk. Is that who
Yeah,
really you want to work with? right? Is
Yeah.
that who you really want in your energetic field, if we want to go there? When you're on the other side of the transformation, you can look back with vulnerability
Yeah.
and share the parts of yourself that maybe were difficult, that were troubled, but that you have a point of wisdom about. This is the
Mm.
key, having a point of wisdom. Every story that that you share, particularly on social, but across all platforms, needs to have a point of wisdom. You'll notice today I didn't just share a random story. Even when I was sharing the stories that I shared, they all had a point of wisdom to them, so that
Yeah.
you had a takeaway, you had a moment. That's the difference between getting up on your camera, on your phone, and yammering about your life and being vulnerable, hashtag vulnerable, and
Right.
actually sharing a truth that can help somebody.
Yeah. I love that point of wisdom. Because even, even in my marriage, my husband's always like, oh, this like vulnerable word, right? Like he's just not a fan. But I think talking about it with that, it's a point of wisdom. It's just speaking from a place of I went through this hard thing and I learned something, right? I learned something that is worth sharing with somebody else who might be silently sitting in it.
And one of this is a producer thing, a Broadway producer thing, goes back to that. We ask ourselves two questions. I always did before ever creating a show, which was why this show, why now?
Yeah.
And so consequently, the same thing before you go to share a story. Why this story? Why now?
Yeah. What's the desired outcome that you want?
Correct.
Is it to help people or is it to kind of like make yourself feel some way?
Yeah, as James says, start with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
What is that outcome?
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's to help you feel better, no. Go to your therapist, go to your coach, go to whoever it is that you need to get the help that you need, but it's not for you to for social.
Yeah. Okay, last nugget. I'm pulling everything out of you. So like as a recovering people pleaser, sometimes I struggle in a room, like say I'm getting a turn in the conversation and I want to get into that powerful storytelling mode because I know when I'm there, but I start to feel like am I taking up too much space? Is Nick waiting for his turn to speak or am I talking about myself too much?
Mm.
Right? And I know I'm not the only one that kind of struggles with that like am I too not am I too much, but like am I going on a tangent that's not relevant?
That's am I too much?
Yeah, yeah. So what tips do you have for somebody like that? Say they're at a dinner table and like they get their shine time and then all of a sudden it's like that inner need to rush through it because they feel like
So
everybody's waiting on them.
the power of the pause is incredible.
Mm,
When you hold space and you take a pause, you can assess the room.
yeah.
And listening is as important in any talk, any speech, anything you do, particularly live, it's as important as talking.
Yeah.
And so really reading the room, read the room. That is really, really vital because you can adjust your storytelling accordingly based on the feedback that you're receiving.
Mm,
And so listen. And then that power of the pause is really owning your space.
yeah.
Sometimes silence is more powerful than chat. So if you
Yeah, and you can
find that you feel like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm yapping, maybe I'm over talking,
yeah.
take a pause, take a breath. Again, it goes back to the breath. Take a breath, come back into the body, listen, pay attention to the room, and then continue.
Yeah.
Or end if it feels like, okay, maybe I need to pull back right now.
Yeah. No, that's such a beautiful way to handle it because I was actually out to lunch the other day and, someone asked me a question and I start to answer and then I could read the body language that she wasn't even listening to the response.
Mhm.
Because you can tell when somebody is like, I mean, I used to work with this guy that would literally be typing on his keyboard as he's looking at me. And I'm like, there's no way he's absorbing what I'm saying. Right. So you can tell. So, what a beautiful way to like actually make that whole scenario not about me and just read the room and like, what do they need?
That's key too. I
Yeah.
think that's you just hit on something that's so vital when you are sharing stories, is that it's not about you. It goes
Yes.
all the way back up to that hero guide piece. If you're
Yes.
nervous, if you scared, make it about them, not about you.
Yeah. And even that whole feeling of it's, am I taking up too much space is actually making it about me. That's my ego or my
Yes.
insecurities versus what does the room need right now?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so good, Nick. I think you might have just fixed that little part of me. It's like one of those things that's a work in progress, but I love the awareness around all of the work that you and I do is like, ooh, I've got this awareness now. There's a
Mhm.
tool that was not there before. And it's like my theme for the year is just to get 1% better every day. So it's like there's a 1% in that conversation right there. There's a 1% that I can improve.
Ooh, I like that. 1% better every day. That's good.
Yeah, I
That's
know. I'm
really
trying to
good.
I'm trying to show up on TikTok and do it. Like my goal was to literally every single day have like a recap of what my 1% was that day, but like energetically I'm not there yet. But by the end of the year, I'm really hoping that I can look back and just be like, "Oh, I really like, you know, showed up for that goal."
I get that. I did a year of gratitude, and I
Yeah.
did a gratitude video a on Instagram every single day for a year, 365 videos, and there were days I was like, "I don't know how I'm gonna do this today. I don't know how I'm gonna
Yes.
do this today."
Yes.
Um, yeah, but it's powerful. It's
Yeah.
powerful to that 1% or that whatever that thing is for you
Yeah.
that you are stepping into, that yeah, it's powerful. So,
Yeah, and I would say,
congratulations.
like oh, thank you. Like, there will be 365 moments, but it's, like, the ones that I'm finding share worthy or, like, you know, getting that out there on the platform, that's a whole 'nother social media conversation, but, yeah, I mean, thank you. Thank you for being my 1% today.
Oh, I'm so honored. That was awesome.
Yes, okay, and because you're such a good storyteller, I'm gonna ask a completely off the wall question, but I was stalking your Instagram, and your husband's adorable. Can you tell us how you guys met?
We met the not so old-fashioned, but old-fashioned way now. We met online.
Oh, nice,
So
okay, cool.
here's the thing. I am never late. I'm not a late human.
Me neither.
And I really don't like it when people are late. But this one time in my life, I was running late and it was for our first date. Now, you have to understand that I had been through a string of bad dates, like 14, 15 bad dates. And I had all of these rules by the time I got to Michael, my husband. And the rules were this: it must be only 1 hour, it's a coffee or a drink only, I always have someplace to go after. And that, yeah, I mean, I was a lot. Anyway, I'm running late. I I call him and I'm like, "I am so sorry," because I had his number. We'd exchanged numbers by then because 'cause we'd done, like, the back and forth thing for quite some time. Not quite some time, 4 times, because anytime after 4, they were out. But anyway, I call her, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I know this is gonna sound really flaky, but I'm running 15 minutes late." Now you have to understand, I only had an hour.
Yeah.
I'm running 15 minutes late, and he said, "No problem. What would you like to drink? I'll have it waiting for you."
Oh.
And then I walked in and I'm like, "Oh, damn."
He is very handsome. He's
He's
very handsome.
handsome.
Yes.
And we began dating, and I knew 4 dates later that, we'd be getting married.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was one of those instant things, like, I knew immediately. Not love at first sight, I don't know if I believe in that per se, but there was something within me that was like, "Oh, this guy,
The
he's."
rules became less important.
Yes, all those rules, all those fabrications suddenly fell apart, and it was, "Oh, yeah, this guy's great."
Oh my gosh. Okay, and as a non-late person, how bad was your anxiety in that moment?
Oh, through the roof. My
Oh my
anxiety was
god.
through the roof about getting there. In fact, I was using all the breath. I lived in New York City at the time, so I was like on the subway, and the subway was running late, and I was like using all of those breath techniques on the subway as I was sitting there trying to, breathe because I was so upset.
Oh
Now,
my
the
god.
truth of the matter is, though, that I actually manifested my husband in many ways.
Oh my god, I love it.
So, whether you believe in manifestation or not, I did a vision board that year. and this was in January at the beginning of the year, I did a vision board. And on the vision board, I like old school cut out this picture of this guy who was this handsome, gray haired man who was an architect. And I had it amongst all the other things on the board. I met Michael in April. He's handsome, gray haired interior designer.
Stop it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
Oh
I
my
don't know. Did I meet him or did he find me? I'm not really sure, but either way, it all worked out.
Oh, what a beautiful story. I love the late story because I can be on my way to somewhere that doesn't even matter if I'm on time and if I'm late. If I'm 5 minutes later than I said I would be, even if it doesn't matter, it's like that physical anxiety is such a thing. And I'm like, it doesn't
Stomach,
matter, Liz. It doesn't matter. But it's like I can't be late. It's not okay.
stomach and knots, like, like all of that. It's just, yeah, I get that. Don't like it. Don't
Some
like it
people
at
are
all.
built that way and some people are not. I get it from my dad. He's a 15 minutes early. I'm a 5 minutes early, but
Oh, my parents are exactly the same, and this is probably why we have this, you and I, because I- my parents were coming to pick me up recently, and it was 10 minutes before the time they were supposed to be here, and they're like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "We're
I got 10
outside. We're
minutes.
outside. We're ready for you." I'm like, "I got 10 minutes."
Oh my God. Yeah, we literally start worrying that something happened to my dad if he's not like 10 minutes early. Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Nick, this was so awesome. Is there anything you want to share as far as what's coming up for you or how we can support you and how we can find you?
You can find me at the Nick Demas across most of the platforms, but particularly Instagram, LinkedIn, and then my podcast, which you're going to guest on.
Yay.
So everyone can come on over and listen to that. It's called The Creative Soulpreneur.
Oh, I love it. Cool. Okay. Well, all of the good stuff will be in the show notes. And thank you so much for this and for my 1% today. You're so amazing. And we'll chat soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Isn't Nick just the best? This is episode 145. So you can get all of Nick's links and connect with him by going to our show notes at elizabethhenson.co/E145. We would love for you to go connect with him over on Instagram and let him know that you listen to the Messy Success podcast. Leave us a review or share this episode with a friend. It truly means the world. And I hope to see a lot of you at our in-person event coming up in April. It will be here before we know it. And you can get all that information in the show notes as well. Episode E145 with Nick Demas.